Hello, welcome students to your Standard 3 English-2 class. In my Part 1 video of Lesson 6, I was teaching about the storm. In that Part 1 video, we saw children how the narrator was living in an old building. It was a 3-storied building and he lived on the top floor with his adopted family, 3 children and their parents. And the roof was made of tin sheets with a ceiling of wooden boards. When the storm started that night, narrator and the family faced a lot of problem. We saw how the water was pouring onto their open typewriter and onto the radio, bed covers and clothes cupboards. And we saw the narrator was picking up his precious things. And after that, children, they came and joined with him to help him. Now let's see page 54, last paragraph. Dolly and her brother picked up armfuls of books and carried them into their room. Here Dolly and her brother, they picked up armfuls of books and carried them into their room. The floor was wet, so the books had to be piled on the beds. So the floor was wet, so they kept all the books on the beds. Suddenly a large field rat leaped onto the desk, jumped onto the desk. Dolly squealed and ran for the door. Squealed means what, children? Make a long high sound. Dolly made a high sound and ran for the door. Why? Because he saw a large field rat. It's all right, said Mukesh. It's all right, said Mukesh. Her brother, he is only looking for shelter from the storm. Here, who is looking for the shelter? The rat. 2 rooms were now roofless. 2 rooms were now roofless. You can see in the picture, children. We saw flashes of lightning and then the lights went out. The children's father had already found a lamp. In the meanwhile, what happened, children? They saw flashes of lightning and then the light went out. The children's father had already found a lamp, and we went on moving books, papers and cloths to the children's room. Our feet were freezing. Tables and chairs were piled high with books. The beds were pushed into the driest corner of the children's room. There, huddled in blankets and quilts, we spent the rest of the night while the storm blew. What happened, children? Here we can see their feet were freezing and tables and chairs were piled high with books. The beds were pushed into the driest corners of the children's room and they were huddled. They were sitting close together and they spent the rest of the night while the storm blew. Slowly the wind stopped and it began to snow. Snowflakes drifted through the gaps in the ceiling. Slowly what happened? The wind stopped and it began to snow. Snowflakes drifted through the gaps in the ceiling. Drifted through means what? They could see the snowflakes is coming through the gaps. Okay, settling everywhere. Early next morning, we found the window panes covered with snow and icicles. Icicles means what, children? Long, thin, pointed pieces of ice that hang from a roof or a rock. Then the rising sun shone through the gaps in the ceiling and turned everything to gold. Next day, what happened? The rising sun shone through the gaps in the ceiling and everything turned gold. Snow crystals shone like diamonds. That snow crystals, it was shining like diamonds on the empty bookshelves. The children's father went out to find a carpenter and tinsmith. Here what happened? The next day, when the morning came, everything was shining. Snow crystals shone like diamonds on the empty bookshelves. The children's father went out to find a carpenter and a tinsmith. Tinsmith means what, children? A person who makes and repairs things made of tin and other metals. The rest of us started putting things in the sun to dry out. By evening, we had got much of the roof on again. What happened, children? The next movie saw the children's father went to find a carpenter and tinsmith to repair their house. And the rest of us, they started to put their things in the sun to dry. Dear students, you understood this chapter? Please write down these word meanings in your notebook. Thank you. Have a nice day.